Noon. I just said all of this before it was actually started. So I think actually this is going down. So good afternoon from New York City in the Fora HQ headquarters. You can see here the shadow of my co-founder, Jake, who is in the process of rebooting his computer because that's what happens when you're about to get on anything live is your computer goes dead. And then our special guest, Natalie Kurtzman from Boston is hello. Hi, Natalie.
Fun.
So today we are going to be talking about tech and tools for the modern travel agent. So really focusing on our bookings platform, which launched in its alpha form back in August in time for Virtuoso Travel Week, a big industry conference that a bunch of us attend, and now has rolled out to our entire community. We are really excited to share it. But just a bit about us first. So I'm Henley. I'm one of the co-founders of Fora. Jake, also a co-founder, and Natalie is one of our advisors. Boston-based, as we said, but somebody who's been really integral to a lot of the work that's gone into this bookings platform. You may see her as a social media star talking about her experience between normal booking and actually using this here. But Natalie, can you just say a little bit about when you joined and like how you became a travel advisor?
Yeah, so I joined Fora about a year and a half ago. Obviously, it was in a pretty different state, and it's so exciting to see all the developments and exciting changes that have happened since I've joined. My previous work experience was a little bit all over the place in events, social media marketing. I had a travel blog for about 10 years, which is really what segued me into this, into being an advisor.
Great. And I think Natalie is like a really good example of what a lot of Fora advisors are, which is like people who love travel but weren't really involved in it professionally, and so now are coming in, joining up, and really helping us build this community into this like really interesting group of people who know tons of travel and the traditional industry. Like there wasn't really a space for them, but they've built wildly successful books of business. Natalie is for sure one of the stars. Now, when we talk about our tech here, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. It's actually just like is an interesting thing. I think when you like start a company that has the outward facing things and then the behind the scenes facing things, even if you're a funded company, you do have to make some tough decisions. And what we realized really early on is like, okay, maybe our website won't look like the best website out there, but what we need to focus on is how do we build tools that are going to make the jobs of the people who are on that website easier. So we've launched a lot this year. If you've been on one of these before, you may have heard about some of it. But today we're going to talk very specifically about this bookings platform. So before we get going, I will share a little video. Let's see if this works.
We're going to let you in on a dirty little industry secret. The travel advisor industry is pretty old school, at least when it comes to tech. Let's take a look at the typical booking process for the behind the scenes of a travel advisor's job. Our girl, Natalie Kurtzman, is here to walk us through it.
Let's start making a booking for Jacqueline in Paris.
The TLDR, there are tons of fun parts about being a travel advisor, but the countless tabs, endless emails, and outdated platforms aren't it. From pricing comparisons to wrangling complex commission tracking spreadsheets, it's tedious, to say the least.
She is confirmed for Paris.
What if we told you there was a better way? As a Fora advisor, Natalie knows what's up. Say see ya for the chaos and waste of time, courtesy of Fora's best-in-class booking platform. The platform is a one-stop shop for everything from A to B, and B as in bookings, of course. We're taking the guesswork out of the discovery and research with side-by-side price comparisons and easy-to-access lists of preferred partnerships and perks. And it's a home for storing payment information and booking clients all in one fell swoop. The result? It's at least 4 times faster than the traditional booking process. And because time equals money, we're doing the math for you. On average, you're saving 83 hours annually. There's a lot you can do in that amount of time, like make a batch of croissants. Yes, it takes 3 days the traditional French way. Take a cross-country train from NYC to LA, climb Tourist Alpine, or take a page from your own book and go on a vacay. So, travel advisors, when you're ready to start taking some time back for yourself, join Fora and start using our booking platform today.
Oh, it's such a game changer. Thank you, Fora.
Thank you, Natalie. So now we've got Jake on. Our tech actually finally decided here to let his computer reboot. So I think what we want to talk a bit about is really sort of the traditional way that people have been booking and how this is different. So there's 2 ways that people go about booking hotels. One would be a bit of what you saw there, which is like, Natalie and I, when we are trying to book a client, we were like looking on hotel websites, and perhaps we're going into different hotel websites. Maybe there's different ways that you can book the same hotel and you're not really sure which is going to be the best one. The other one is Sabre, or the GDS, which is the traditional way that it was sort of built for airlines. There's a bit of like coding to it. It's very out of date. And very few people who are joining the industry now are doing that. I've been in the industry for 15 years. I never learned how to use Sabre. I was trained in it twice. Both times I decided this is not for me. There's weird things like Cross of Lorraine is an actual thing that you're supposed to type in order to get stuff done. That sounds like Game of Thrones. I can't do it. So really the goal with this was to give the access to all of the data that you have in the GDS, but put it in the hands of people like Natalie and me who don't want to have to code things out. We just want it to work. So I'm going to let Jake talk a bit about what came to mind when he started building something that would solve all of our complaints.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the little delay getting started here. Why don't I take over the screen and I'll share what the booking platform looks like so you can see it firsthand. I think that's the best way to go through this. For everyone here, like I've built technology for about, 20, 30 years at this point, and I've not worked in the travel space before. So coming into this and actually getting acquainted with all of the different vendors and systems, it was really interesting because the state of travel technology is not, I think, where some people think it is. It was one of the earliest industries to computerize. Think about like the early air ticketing reservation systems and hotel systems. And so that means that a lot of technology has been cobbled together, layered over layer. And so what we're left with is like a lot of old systems that talk to each other and make this stuff possible. But along the way, you get things like bad data or, small character constraints or things in all caps, or information that can't be passed from our system back to the hotel system. So what we're trying to do here at Fora is take a sort of fresh approach on top of that and build around the constraints of the system as best as possible, existing systems, to make the lives of our travel advisors as easy as possible. And so what I'll show you now, I'm going to share my screen.
Doesn't want to share.
Doesn't want to share.
Doesn't want to share. There we go.
Let's see, share. Can you see it?
It is. We can see it.
I can build really complex things. I used to be a computer support person. That's how my career started in technology. And clearly I don't follow my own advice, which is to keep your browser up to date at all times. So this is our portal that every Fora advisor gets access to. It allows you to manage your work, to look at your bookings, to see your clients. And this new section, partners, is what we launched. So previously we had like a very static list of all of our preferred partners, where you could see the different hotels and cruise lines and DMCs that we partner with, and it would show you the different perks that we get from our preferred partners, the different commission rates, et cetera, et cetera. But it was basically like looking in a list. In fact, even before this portal existed, we just had that data in a Google Sheet. So what we did over the summer, and it was really an exercise just this past summer, we started sometime in June, and we partnered with one of the GDS providers called Travelport. There are a handful of them, and they own one of the legacy GDSs, which is called Galileo. And that's what we have integrated here to make this possible. And so we now have in the platform 4,886 preferred partner properties. So we launched this just in September with the just almost 5,000 hotels where you can book them. These are just the hotels where we have additional perks through preferred partnerships that we do directly with Fora Reserve, as you can see here, or through the Consortia Virtuoso, or in many cases, as I'll show you in a second, when we look through the example, the preferred partner programs of specific hotel brands like Four Seasons Preferred, Rosewood Elite, Hyatt Privé. So Turtle Bay Resort is one of our favorite places to stay in Hawaii and one of our top partners. You can see that 35 advisors have booked this 64 times over the past year. So it's definitely very popular. It's a fantastic place with an older hotel building that's been renovated and brought to new life in a really unique part of Hawaii, and they have a fantastic program. And it sits on this like amazing piece of land. So all of the rooms have ocean views. It just depends on which direction you're looking. And so if you click in here, let's see, that did not open because I need to. Oh, I can just share this tab instead. There we go. Amazing technology. So this is the property details page. It doesn't look too dissimilar from, other booking platforms that you might have used. We definitely took inspiration looking around the internet or what's out there. I mean, there's not too many different ways to cut this from a design perspective. We wanted to make it very intuitive. So we have, from some partners, we have 150 photos. From some, we have 5. And we're constantly working with our preferred partners to get more and better images. And eventually we'll launch with videos here. Our goal is to really take the media portion of what we offer to our advisors to the next level, to be able to show specific things like room tours by video, so that when you're an advisor, you can understand, okay, this is the exact layout of the room. When a travel advisor goes to a hotel, the first thing they do is, like, before letting their family into the room or themselves, like, to mess up anything, they go and take like a little video of the room. And so we want to be able to capture those so that people can really understand, okay, what's the feeling like of being in these rooms, and what's the layout like. That kind of rich media doesn't exist anywhere in the GDS, and it doesn't exist in sort of standard image and content distribution networks that are out there. So we're going to try and create that, at least to start with all of our preferred partners, so that when you're an advisor selling to your clients, you could say, look, I have a video I can show you of, like, the deluxe room. I think you should pay a little bit more because it has this desk and you're going to be doing some work while you're there, et cetera, et cetera. So you can also view rates, and I'm going to come back and show you this in a different way. But even before we actually tap in and, like, enter some dates to see some live rates, you can see that this hotel, we can access perks different ways. We have a Fora reserve rate, which is our direct contracted rate with this property. And you can see here that it offers advisors commission, which is something that we've negotiated directly with Turtle Bay. We also have the standard virtuoso prices at their commission levels with their perks. And then we just have regular rates that exist for anyone who wanted to go book these. And these regular rates end up being basically the same things that you get from, like, if you were to go and book online yourself as a consumer. I go back to this tab. So I'm very partial to Paris. My wife is from there, and so we spend a lot of time here. Although, because we have family there, I don't get to spend a lot of time in hotels. But I'm always imagining where I could stay when I go to Paris. So these are the 105 preferred partner hotels that we have in Paris. And if you scroll down this list, you'll see there's quite a nice array of hotels. If I want to go, let's say, when should we go? Let's go in early December for a weekend trip to Paris. Why not?
I love the holiday lights in Paris in early December.
Who wants to go to Miami during this time? There's an art show there, and it gets crowded. This also happens to be around my birthday, which is a really nice time to travel, early December, before the holiday season begins. And so now, I don't know if you even noticed that I was just talking, but, like, I can undo it so we can see how fast this is. But let me just undo it, because I think this is worth pointing out that, like, so now we have no rates, and we haven't even implemented caching yet. So this is actually getting I'm going to do this again, and you'll say, oh, but you just got the rates, and so that's why it's faster. And I will tell you, no, we actually we're real-time re-requesting all of these rates from the GDS partners.
I think you assume that most of us think about this more. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I'm just glad the rates are loading.
The rates are loading very fast. So that's it. You have all the rates. Now, we don't currently support sort by price, but this is coming very soon. So we have an entire pod of engineers and product managers and designers working on this through a very long backload of small UX improvements, and then sort of like larger things like maps you see here coming soon. We're actively working on this. It's going to be really exciting. And then we're doing things like taking all of the hotel data and enhancing it with neighborhood filters and other kinds of things, so that for large cities, especially like Paris, is maybe simpler because you could look and say, I want to stay in the second arrondissement. But if you're looking, for example, say in London, we'll be able to say, I want to stay in Mayfair versus Soho in London, or like maybe I want to stay in East London. And so you'll be able to pick neighborhoods specifically for some of the major cities where we have hotels. But here you can see we've sorted this by, like, sort of our top booked properties. So we love this hotel, the Kimpton Saint Honoré in Paris. It's our top booked property in Paris. There's also so many other places that you could book. If you want to stay somewhere at a slightly different price point, you could stay at this Rosewood, which is also very nice. Let me open the tab. And they have a beautiful bar where even if you're not staying there, you could go drink. And they have an excellent wine list. So here is an interesting example, because before, if you're an advisor, and you want to go book this hotel, you have to sort of go around to the hotel site, enter your IATA number, or you'd have to go to the Rosewood agent site and log in, enter the IATA number. And then you have to like balance between these and say, okay, what are the regular rates? What are the Virtuoso rates? What are the Rosewood Elite rates? Here we just sort of like lay it all out for you very simply. And what's usually on the left is best. So here there's a massive difference if you're an advisor in terms of the amount of commission that you can earn. And if you go back and forth between these tabs, you'll actually see, okay, this is very interesting, and I did not plan this. There's actually a better rate, the lowest premier room, 35 square feet in City View or King Queen Garden. So the same room is available at a slightly lower price and more commission. So this is fantastic because you can just go through and say, okay, and these are the rates that are available without perks. So they're the same. Now, one thing we have not done is we've taken the room descriptions directly from the GDS system, which sometimes can be a little bit garbled. So like, this is why there's little dashes here. This is how the hotel has put it into one system and it got translated to another system and then made its way to the GDS into our system. So we're doing a big effort to sort of standardize and improve these room names and then the underlying descriptions on them. And then eventually sometime next year, we'll have all the photos from the hotels for at least our preferred partners tied directly, ideally to the room level. So you can see what room you're looking at here. But it gives you the refundability, the nightly breakdown, and the total price, excuse me. And then all the other small text that you get from the GDS. You can go here. I've done a lot of talking, but you can click through this in about a minute. So Natalie's video is correct. I'm going to go here and type my name. I will enter my credit card, and then I can go and press book. I'm not going to book it, but you could go and press book. Actually, I could book it and then just cancel it, but we try not to do that to our partners. But you can click here, book, and you will get a confirmation of the room reservation. It's that it's that quick and that simple. It also works on mobile. So if you take this screen and make it narrow in your browser, or you load it on your phone, it works. I had friends call me just as their flight was canceled at Charles de Gaulle, and they told me they were on their way to Paris in a taxi and they needed a hotel for like 30 minutes from the moment they called me. And I was literally in my car driving with my kids in the back in the rain. This is a true story. In Gowanus, in Brooklyn, in New York, leaving the Lowe's, I pulled over on the side of the road where there's plenty of empty roads down there, and I whipped out my phone, and within 2 seconds, I had a room for them at the Kimpton in Paris, and I was like, here's the address where you need to go. And I called the Kimpton front desk, told them that they were coming, and they arranged to have our perks set up in the room for them, by the time they came 20 minutes later. And I think that's really the power of the platform, is that you could do that, directly on the hotel site, but actually the time they were there, the rugby was in Paris, and so many hotels were very full, and so there were a lot of hotels not available. So you could end up wasting a ton of time like searching around for availability, pricing. I was able to sort of say, okay, this 600 euro price is actually like sort of standard right now. There's no cheaper deal. So we looked at a few different properties as I was scrolling through the list of what's available, and that made our clients feel like they were actually getting something and not being like, sort of taken advantage of, that I was just giving them the first thing available. So I'm really excited about this. What's next on the roadmap is we're about to add in another 20,000 hotels to the booking platform. So this number will go up. These are hotels that we do not have perks at, but are hotels that we've booked here at Fora. And then eventually, sometime in early next year, we will open this up to like the 100 or something thousand hotels that we like want to make available to our advisors. And there'll be more filters on the left at that point. The maps will be implemented so you'll be able to see hotels in very crowded cities. And we basically want to make it possible for people to book anything they want that we're, like a partner of through the booking platform. That's the demo. It's pretty simple. And with all that talking, we could take some questions, or we could go back to Natalie and maybe get some thoughts from her.
So I'd love to bounce this back over to Natalie, because Natalie, you were doing this job the other way and now this way. So maybe you can talk a bit about like your process before and your like sort of your key frustrations.
Absolutely. It's really night and day. And hearing Jake talk about how he used it on his phone, it's like, honestly, the easiest thing. And it is really night and day. So previous to the booking platform, if a client knew where they wanted to stay, had a hotel in mind, it would be like less complicated, but it still is multiple steps. You're going to the hotel website. And then if they're part of a preferred program, especially if it's like Virtuoso or one of the other more boutique options like small luxury hotels, you also want to go to that partner website because it's Virtuoso is often bar, but not always. And so you want to confirm with the hotel, am I getting the perks? And then other preferred programs are sometimes a bit more expensive. So for myself, I always want to share different rate options depending on what the client wants to do. And so it would take, I don't know, on average, maybe an hour to send over, options for a property. And the other situation is when someone says, I want to go to Paris or I want to do I do a lot of Italy and people want to stay in 3 or 4 different cities or places. And so you're pulling maybe, I don't know, I usually do about 2 to 3 options per place. So that's a lot of hotels. And I think I just would have 100 tabs open and just looking at all the different options, then going back to my email and pulling it. And then when the client actually wants to book, you're then having to go back and, open the thing again. And so I think as Jake demonstrated, just having the side-by-side comparison, it's like, here are the rates and here are the perks that are coming with these rates. And here is the cancellation policy. And here is the deposit, or if there's just a credit card as a guarantee. It's like everything is just super streamlined and very easy to just absorb and then share that with your client. And I love that if you're booking a rate that has perks, that those perks are guaranteed. Whereas I think if you're booking a bar on a website, you're always questioning. I would often be emailing the hotel, are Virtuoso rates, bar, or are they a different rate? And so I think from just taking a lot of work out of it, it's just so much faster. I will say the other thing that's amazing is just not having the lag time in commissions and having that show up in the portal. So having just pulling directly from your client and knowing what's the commission percent, how much am I going to be making off of this booking, having the credit card details directly linked. All of that, it's easier and faster, but it's also just I think it's much more secure. You're not taking the credit card and adding it to a third party site and all of this. So it really has, I use it all the time. And there are certain cases where maybe it's not a partner property or something, and I have to do it the old fashioned way. And I'm just reminded of wow, how I used to do it. It really is a night and day experience.
Yeah. And I think that I've really found too that we didn't talk so much about the credit card stuff, but I think everybody saw how Jake was able to just select from a drop down, because best case scenario is a client's I want to go to the Kimpton on these dates, book it, which almost never happens. But even in that case, if you don't have it all linked up, you're pulling it up, and then you also have to open whatever other system you have the credit card information saved in. Or like me, people are texting me photos of their credit card and they're on my phone and I'm trying to do all this, and it feels, like you said, really insecure and also multi-step. So the goal is really having it all in that one place where you can float through it. So Natalie, sort of in the future, as you see this continuing to evolve along with your job, how do you think this is going to sort of help you moving forward?
Well, I think I'm also going back to something Jake had said. I think it is really helpful when talking to clients about the trends on rates, because especially in a lot of destinations, the rates are really high. And so I think having this, putting in your dates, putting in the amount of people in the room, and then having just this aggregate of what the rates are. And so you can really be yeah, this is a really this is a good rate, or this is, if you want to share something that's on the lower end versus something that's a bit higher, you can just see it instead of literally just going to every single website that you because in addition to all those websites, I would have our, version 1.0 supplier database, I guess, with all of our preferred programs. And then, it just is very complicated. So in terms of where I think it's going to go, I think it's just going to continue to make the process faster and more seamless. And it's exciting to see as more properties get added.
Yeah, super exciting.
I was going to add two things that I think are examples of what we've been able to build. And I can also show the credit card feature, but I think that we sort of skipped over that a little bit at the end. I think the credit card vault, or the payment card vault is really innovative in itself, but it's really powerful when you pair it with the booking, checkout process. And it's one click to find your client, one click to click the card. And that's what made it possible for me to do that for my friends, because I had already booked for them and I had their card details. Even though if you don't already have card details for a client, being able to send them a text message with a link and they're able to just go and quickly enter their card details into a secure form and have that go into a secure vault that then you're later able to access. And those card details aren't even stored in our system, but we're able to pass them securely to the booking platform, which ends up taking them onto the hotel, so they don't even touch Fora's environment. Is like super reassuring for the client. And when I started out, I know that people are storing cards like in notebooks and on paper and then Apple Notes and all sorts of other ways, because people ultimately value the convenience over sort of the possible small security risk of having their cards sitting with their advisor, so that they can call their advisor and say, please book this now for me, and they don't have to be like fumbling around to get card details, or they can text their advisor and say, hey, okay, let's do it, and the advisor can just do it. And I think this sort of solves a key problem. And so our desire is to bring more and more into the booking platform, so that the flow ultimately gets easier too for advisors to sort of complete the booking with their client details. Natalie also mentioned something about how when you book in the booking platform, we immediately log those bookings into your bookings registry as an advisor. And then you're also able to cancel bookings through the GDS. So that's another flow that's like people don't talk about, but sometimes clients will want to book two different things. You can hold them. And then, as long as you're within the cancellation window, it's one click to cancel through the GDS, our integration with our GDS as well, in the portal. And so this makes it super easy to do work where maybe you'd even have to call the hotel to make that cancellation happen, which is like a huge, drain, especially if you're doing your work like in after hours or on weekends and there's not the right person at the hotel to make the cancellation happen. So that is also a big time saver. The other thing I would say is that, Natalie, what you said about perks is really interesting. So you can sort of know what the like standard perks are for a program, but actually we're able to go one level deeper and suck in through our different integrations these specific perks that are available at that hotel. So for Virtuoso, for example, there's like sort of a standard format to the Virtuoso perks every year. Late checkout, early check-in, a breakfast, a credit, but it does vary at each hotel. And so if you go into the Virtuoso listing for each hotel, you can see that there are specific perks for each one. And so we're able to suck those in from our partners and display them directly there at the property level. The same is true for things where there are slight differences, like in Hyatt Privé or some of the things that we book through other partners like Tableau Pro. We can actually show the exact perks that guests will get, which makes it a lot easier also.
So I see some questions coming in from the audience. I'm going to pass these to both of you. I'm going to start with you, Natalie. A question about how do you share the hotels with your clients? So clients can't see this. This is your tool as an advisor. How do you handle sort of like quoting for your clients?
Yeah, great question. And I think everyone is a little bit different with their process. I use two different tools depending on the client and the complexity of the trip. I either just use it in a body of an email and I'll, have the hotel and like why I'm recommending it, what I think would really resonate with the client about this particular property. And then I share the rates. As I'm mentioning, I usually don't do non-refundable, but if I'm offering a regular rate, if there is a large discrepancy, often, as you've seen, the perk rate is the same, but sometimes it's not. So I offer those various options with all of the other details. So either just in the body of the email, or I will sometimes use Access for building out itineraries. And so sometimes I will use that as a tool, since there's obviously already a lot of rich hotel information, photos. It's a little bit more visually appealing. And if the trip is more complex, it just makes the flow a little bit easier, I think. But again, it really depends on the client. Those are my two main.
Now, I'm going to put Jake on the spot and pass the same question to him, but with a little twist, which is, so booking process has gotten better. How do you see sort of the future in terms of quoting and what we could do with this platform to make the process of quoting also easier?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So I think, the one thing we're trying to do is, I think, as Natalie said, like make it very easy to take information out we're not quite there yet on this copy paste, but to make it work for everyone is so that you can copy bits of information about the hotel and about a specific room and paste it into whatever you want to use, because there's no like one way that people want to do this. So we'll make it work so that every Fora advisor gets their own Fora Gmail. So it'll be able to be pasted directly nicely into an email, and you can edit it slightly, or if you want to do a different kind of itinerary, whether you're using Access or Canva or whatever, you can paste it in. But that's actually not even the exciting part. I think the real exciting part for me is what we're sort of going to call, I don't know, we haven't named it yet, but it'll be called like a live itinerary or something like this, or a bookable itinerary is really where we're going, or a bookable quote, excuse me, so that you could say, hey, I want to give you these three options. There's this hotel and there's like a small room and another room, and there's this hotel with this room, and there's this hotel with this room. And you could essentially put that together into like a nice little web page where you could add your comments, like, okay, Jake, like I see you want to go to Paris in December. Like, like here's an overarching comment for like the results that you're getting, and then for each hotel, like a little mention as to why you're recommending it. Like this one is in the best location. Like the rooms are a little smaller, but this will be close to the restaurant where you're eating on Friday. And then et cetera, et cetera. And then you just send this to the client, and they don't need to write you back and say, okay, I will do the like third option. They could just press a button and book it. The other thing that they could do is the prices would be dynamic. So as your, like if you give someone a quote, and I think this has probably happened to all of us, you say, okay, this room is, 300 euros. And by the time the client gets around to booking it, it's now 400 euros. And this creates a real, like, sort of annoying situation. Even though it was the client that didn't get back to you in a short amount of time, it's just easier to have these like live, the prices be live. And so ideally, we'd be able to send a client a link, and they could just see the actual pricing and say, I want this one. Or they could say, I want to go a day less, and I'll change the dates, and I'll just select that rate. You would still, as the advisor, get obviously the same credit. It would show up in your booking platform. You would get a notification that the client is booked. But the client, might be doing this in a different time zone, might be doing it at 2 a.m., might be doing it at 7 a.m. You might not be available at that time. And so this just makes the whole booking process like more seamless. And so I think that's sort of where we're thinking about taking this. And that's really the power of like, there's a lot of tools out there for advisors, which are great, but they don't integrate with a booking platform. And this is where I think the power of integrating with our own booking platform will allow us to do things like that, which are really unique.
So I see a few questions about specifically around like the platform and what hotels are on it versus not on it. Jake, can you talk a little bit about like the steps that are forthcoming to have more properties on our platform, and what happens to those that aren't? How do you book those?
Sure. So I think some of these questions might have come in before I spoke earlier, but our goal is to make, nearly every hotel bookable in the platform. It's a little bit of like a probably 6 to 8 month roadmap for us to get there. So we launched this in September with just our preferred partners, and we're still cleaning up a lot of the data, cleaning up some of the rates. It was a little bit more complicated to load a preferred partner because we have to make sure that all of the correct preferred partner rates load with their associated perks and commissions, et cetera. The next set of hotels is coming sort of, I think we're going to do it on sort of a regular rollout cycle where new things will come almost every week as we start verifying and cleaning data with some like big jumps. So we have almost 2,000 hotels coming next week, and then another couple thousand in the early part of November, and then we'll ultimately get to every single hotel that we've already booked it for, which is around 20,000 different hotel properties. And then we'll look beyond that to sort of say, okay, every hotel. So like if you're an advisor and your client needs to stay in a little place in the middle of nowhere in the US because, like this has happened to me, I'm going to a friend's wedding and it's like, and you stay at this Courtyard Marriott, like there's many, many, many Courtyard Marriotts. You'll be able to book them all in the booking platform. Or I just stayed at an Ibis in Europe as I was doing a road trip crossing France. So I hope that I'll be able to book that in the booking platform too. We're going to have to work on our search interface so you're not overwhelmed when you look at Paris and there's, thousands of results. This is where filtering will come in, star levels will come in, maps will help, brand selection filters will help. And so we can essentially allow advisors to configure the the booking platform to show them the default results that they want to see in the result set, and then can like expand beyond that when they want to see like the full 100,000, 120,000, whatever number of hotels we end up having in the platform. Is that any advice?
Yes.
Other things I should touch on?
That is helpful. And I think just to elaborate a little bit on what Jake's saying, sort of this idea of loading hotels, it feels like, well, why don't we just like put them all in there? So a few weeks ago, I'll tell you a little behind the scenes story. This verification of data is a really big deal because every hotel has a GDS code. You want to make sure that the way that it shows up here is actually like matched to the right hotel. So a few weeks ago, most of our staff spent large portions of their weekend actually going through and checking every single GDS code so that you can make sure that when Natalie goes in and clicks on this hotel, it actually is linked in the back to the right one. I spent 4 hours on a flight just doing this on the on the airline Wi-Fi. So this is something where it's like this level of detail. We don't want to throw it all out there right at once because what you don't want is that it gets done wrong because that could be obviously a big boo-boo. So it is being QA'd again and again and again to make sure that when it rolls out right. There's still obviously going to be sort of functionality stuff that we want, but we want to make sure at least like the basics are done correctly. I'm going to jump back over to Natalie. Question about your process. So when you're booking through the GDS, it's not linked to your email. You're going in, you're booking in, so it's going through to the hotel. What's your process for follow-up after you've booked a client to make sure they understand like who is the client, what are the details to make sure that that stay goes well and they know that it's coming from you? Yeah,
so after I complete the booking?
Yes.
So if I am booking through, really any modality, whether it's, my preference is the booking platform, but I always follow up with the hotel to share the confirmation and share the client information, make sure that everything looks good on their end, because again, this is technology and sometimes there are, there can be issues. And so just making sure everything looks good. And if there are any requests that I have or, special, if it's a birthday or anything like that, I alert them then. Obviously when I go back to reconfirm, which I usually do 2 weeks, 10 days out, I'll mention everything again, but it's really nice just to kind of check that box and make sure that everything is all set for your client, because the last thing we want is to go to reconfirm and realize that they're actually not all set and it's sold out or what have you. So that's usually my first step. And then it's also nice if it's a property you don't know and you don't have the contact. It's also one less thing you have to do when it's time to reconfirm. You already have that contact, whether it's a phone number or an email, and you've already made that connection. So when the reconfirmation is sent, they're already familiar with you. They already know the client. It just makes for more of like a seamless relationship, I think.
Yeah, I think that's super important because obviously we want to make the process of booking faster, but we're still people. And so the advantage to an advisor is having somebody that's going to reach out on your behalf and be like, hey, Natalie's celebrating an anniversary or a birthday, or she's got a peanut allergy or whatever it is, because that's what humanizes the process and really helps our partners on the other side go, okay, like, we want to make this a super special stay because then the advisor looks good, the hotel looks good. So I think that personal touch is like never going to go away. So moving into back to for a minute to Jake, this live option though, how far out are we from that?
Oh, I can never discuss it. No.
Jake doesn't like being held to
I'm very
come back and go, but you said.
I'm very comfortable giving estimates. I think our large and growing product and engineering team has voted that I do not do that anymore. Or it wasn't really a vote; it was like a request. So, Alana, I will just say next year, which sounds like a really long time away. Except just keep in mind that it's October. So, I think this will be very powerful, and I think something we'll prioritize. But it is currently sitting behind maps and search and a few other big things that I think are even more important. And getting more hotels in there, but this is very, very high on our list. So stay tuned, and we will scream loudly when this happens, because I do think it's going to be a very incredible concept, as you said in your question.
I can't wait. I mean, there's nothing worse than that waking up in the morning and somebody sent you at 11 p.m. while you were asleep, let's book it. And you're like, please God, don't let it be different than what it was last night.
Better not be sold out. It's really, really bad. I mean, and this I think is one of the big frictions in terms of traveler. There's not something from it's very neat for the advisor, but it's also very, very neat from a traveler, and sort of gets us to our goal for a little bit closer to being more like an OTA or online travel booking experience. But with this is a key part of like enabling the human to work with technology to make the travel booking experience so much better. So you can get this personal recommendation, but still go book, and click it when you feel ready. Which often might not be like, I don't know, in my household, like we're often talking about things where we're like sitting in bed at night, like looking at phones. It's not a time where you want to like call your travel advisor at like 11 p.m. and say, okay, let's get the room right now because it's the last room in Positano, this July. But if you could just go, boop, that would be really nice. So, very much on our mind.
All right. Well, we are at time, so I'm going to wrap up and say, Natalie, thank you so much. I know you are so busy right now, so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a bit about your experience. Also, thank you to Jake for letting us pull him off of all of his busyness with his incredible engineering team. Britt, thank you, everybody. We are at time. Really appreciate you joining. We're so excited about this new tech, but also just really this is the beginning. So mostly excited about all the possibilities of where it will go. We're just getting started. Right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Natalie.
Thanks.